I've been following this space for a number of years. One of the things I'm noticing is banks more and more becoming less speedy or supportive of repaying money that may have been stolen from a bank account holder or business. This is just anecdotal through the stories that I see in the mainstream media. What do you do if you're a business and somebody has breached your security plan and you've inadvertently transferred 100 grand to them when you were meant to be transferring it to somebody else, the real supplier? You've accidentally sent it to the cybersecurity bad guys.
It's hard. The banks are doing a huge amount. Most of the banks are really good when it comes to security. So it's likely not to be a fault with their systems. It's likely to be a fault with the way you have managed your security. And I don't mean to blame the individual people running businesses and the population, but it's like if you build Fort Knox, but then you leave your keys with the name of the house that they're to lying around in the car park, or you leave them at the pub, and then somebody uses those keys to walk straight in. It's because people have really sloppy personal security that's actually usually how these things happen. There are more sophisticated breaches, and we can talk about those in a second. But the biggest thing people can do is to actually take some personal security steps. Stop reusing your passwords for more than one account. If you reuse a password more than once, then you're vulnerable. You also need to be using complex passwords, because computers can just brute force attack passwords that aren't very complicated. So we're talking passwords that are 14 characters or more and use a mixture of uppercase and lowercase numbers and use a mixture of special characters and numbers, right? So a complex password. And then also turning on multi-factor authentication is one of the biggest things you can do to protect yourself. If you've got all of that turned on, then you're actually in pretty good shape for somebody hacking your bank account and stealing money. Now, the bit where you accidentally transfer money to the wrong company, that's happening a lot. And so what happens is the bad guys might intercept an invoice, or they might be inside your system, and they change the invoice details about who the money's got to go to. And you transfer the money to the wrong bank account details and it's gone. What should you do? You should report it to the police. They're not necessarily going to be able to get the money back, but they actually have been recovering people's money.
Wow.
Not everyone, but they actually have been managing to do it for some people. You should also immediately call your bank. So before you call the police, call the bank, because the bank can sometimes stop the transaction before the money becomes available to the bad guys. The other thing that you can do is to call your insurer, because if you have cyber insurance, it does sometimes cover those kinds of losses. Now, if you've been the victim of somebody who's supposed to send you money, but actually they accidentally sent it to the bad guys instead, there's also things you can do. There was a case in the ACT last year where one business took another business to the Small Claims Tribunal. Don't need lawyers to do that. You can just go represent yourself. And they had lost $5,000 because it had been sent to the bad guys instead of being sent to the correct invoice details. And they were able to get their money back. So because it was the fault of the customer, there was a threat actor.
So Andy, you mean to tell me that a business generated an invoice, sent it to somebody, business or person or whatever, they paid the invoice but to the wrong entity because they were breached. And then the entity that actually did the work or sold them the goods weren't going to get paid and they had to go to small claims? Is that happening?
Yep, that's right. Because the customer, in that sense, so they had the goods and they said, but we've paid $5,000, we're out of pocket. The fact that it didn't end up in your bank account is not our fault. And the supplier went, well, hang on, we're still out $5,000 and you've got the goods. So there's still a debt outstanding. And so that was what the recovery action was. It was a debt recovery action. And what the court found was that the security issue happened at the customer's end. And the customer hadn't taken any action to confirm the bank account details with the supplier. And they had simply transferred the money without taking any extra steps to check. Goodness. And so the debt's still outstanding and they were asked to pay it and required to pay it.